Hello, hello, I'm Tracy Pierce. Thanks for joining me for this Live with the Animals video series. So this series was really born out of what was happening here in the United States in March of 2020. The coronavirus suddenly made a big appearance on the global scale. Places were going into lockdown, shutdown, shelter-in-place orders were happening. And this led me to just be really curious about what the animals thought about all of this, both the domestic animals and the animals who were living outside. Just wondered what they were thinking, and it led to a really interesting series of videos that we did with both with domestic and wild animals, and it's kind of continued from here. And lately we've been interviewing a lot of wild animals, and we're going to continue with that here today. So who we're going to be chatting with today is a little crab spider. Let me pull up its picture here. All right, so I did blow up the picture. This spider is actually pretty small, like maybe no more than 2 inches, I think. Maybe even smaller than that. So I looked it up, and what I could find is that these are called crab spiders. And so yeah, so if you're joining us live, let me be sure I have the chat pulled up here. If you're on Zoom and you have a question for this little spider, there should be a button on the bottom of your Zoom that says chat. Just click on that, type in your questions. And if you're joining me live on Facebook, just type your comments or questions into the comment section. So I'm just going to get quiet and start tuning into this little spider and see what it would like to share with us today. So the first thing it starts to show me is it brings messages about precision. So it's showing me the way it walks, and you know, like the end of its legs are very precise, and it's showing just being very precise. Like this word precise is it's coming forward very strongly, about being precise about where it puts its feet down. It's showing how it weaves its web. There is this very kind of precise geometry that it's using. Little spider friend, is this particular to your species of spider, or is this kind of about all spiders in general? Well, what I'm talking about right now is specific to my species, because I see, like in my head, I'm remembering we talked to a spider last week too, and it was a different kind of spider, and like it just something felt different about what you were describing versus what this other spider was describing. That's why I was asking about the precision. Yeah, it's saying all, you know, different varieties of spiders have different ways of building their webs. And there is something about my species, the crab spiders, and the way it just keeps pointing to, again, to the end of its legs and how precise and pointy and like sharp they are. There is something different about my species than other species and how we weave our webs. All species have, you know, geometry kind of woven into it, but there is something a bit more precise in what we crab spiders are doing. Okay. You know, I guess that I never really thought about that. I hadn't ever compared different kinds of spider webs. I might have to kind of look and check that out. Right. So I wonder what else you might like to share with us about you, or any spider wisdom you want our viewers to be aware of. It's really an open forum for you to share what you would like. So show me something about the air element. I feel the earth element in there a little bit too. A spider keeps showing me it being in its web, you know, that might be higher up in a corner or something, and how the wind It says we're largely reliant on the wind for our food, when it comes to the web. It shows sometimes, we are on the ground and we will catch little insects that, not necessarily in our webs, but we'll just catch them when they're on the ground. So there's a bit of an earth element to us as well, but because our food source, generally, we build our webs up in the air, and the air is what brings us our food source generally, like kind of more overall. We tend to resonate with the air element. Is there something more you want us to know about the air element, or how it might be important to you or to us? So it shows how, different individuals, so this could be an individual species or individual persons, tend to resonate more fully with one element or another. So it's showing that doesn't mean that the other elements are absent. It's just like one element may be more forward than another. So it's kind of pointing at me saying like I tend to be more fire and earth. And those elements tend to really dominate in my own life. And he says kind of the same for different species of spider or different animals, that we all have parts of the different elements in us, but one may be stronger. So it sounds like you're saying there's a way of finding balance with that, almost like, for me, I know with me being so fiery, sometimes it does create like an imbalance in other parts. Yeah, see, the spider's saying it's really good to be aware of these things in ourselves, such that when we can kind of sense when we get out of balance. He's pointing at me like, when you're having too much fire in your body and what that feels like, and so you're able to bring in the other elements to help balance it out. It almost sounds to me like you're kind of advocating Chinese medicine, because I like in my memory. It's Chinese medicine that uses the 5 elements. I mean, there might be other modes of healing. Like I know Ayurveda maybe calls it something different, but talks about the elements as well. Yeah, so the spider is saying it's really encouraging us to remember that we're more than just like individual physical molecules. There is an energetic component to us that we need to be aware of in order to really fully be balanced, is what the spider is saying. It's more than just following your routine. So it's showing, what might be a typical quote unquote good routine: get up, have a little bit of breakfast, go to the gym, take your shower, get ready for work. Like it's showing there's much more to our lives than just these physical to-do things and the physical things that we move through in our lives that we need to get done. Sure, we would be, like as a society and as individuals, we would be able to better regulate ourselves if we were a little bit more familiar with the elements, is what the spider is saying, the different elements that compose us. Okay, take a look for questions here. Let's see any pop up right now. Okay, actually, that one. All right, so Mr. Spider, I've got a question here for you. Have you ever been reincarnated before in your whole life? If so, do you remember anything from your past lives? So this is the spider keeps showing. It's almost like a loop. Like I keep seeing this circle, like coming to earth, dying, going back up to heaven, coming down, up and down, like the reincarnation cycle. He's showing it has been quite fast for him. And he's showing there has been a focus on being, I see you being a spider multiple times. Were you always this kind of crab spider? No? Okay, you know, I feel like we've seen this before with other animals. They've talked about like their reincarnation cycles, and sometimes they'll pick like a specific species or something that like a lesson or something that they're learning within that particular species. And I feel like what you're showing me is that you've come back multiple times as a spider. Is that accurate? So he's saying, yes, you're not incorrect. You have seen this pattern of sometimes a particular animal soul will pick a certain species or something, and there may be a particular kind of lesson or particular education they can really get from being that particular species. And so they'll do a cycle of lives. It's almost in that particular species until they get it. He's showing how, like as a spider, our lives are fairly short, and so it makes sense to him that, or it, that it would come back and want to keep learning these certain things until they get it right, is not quite right, but like are able to absorb all the information that they're looking for. The spider says, yes, I do remember things about my past lives. Um, it's not quite the same as humans though. Like humans put more importance on certain things. Do you want to be more specific with that? He's saying that humans become more attached to certain things. So some are showing, so as species kind of move more towards the mammal spectrum. So if you have like amphibians and reptiles and insects over here and kind of moving towards the mammal side of things, he's showing how once animals get into this more mammal kind of body, there tends to be like they hang on to emotions differently. Whereas like with, he's using quotes like lower life forms like insects, amphibians, reptiles, non-mammals, that they don't hold on to emotions and stuff in the same way. It's almost like it just passes right through them. Yeah, so there is a difference in the incarnation cycle between different kinds of animals, and depending on, there's something it's saying about moving towards the mammal side of things that makes it a little bit more sticky emotionally somehow. Huh. So you feel like even, I guess that kind of makes sense then, that humans might tend to like mammals as pets more than insects or reptiles or things like this. Do you have an opinion on that? Well, the spider's saying, yes, there is something that mammals tend to resonate with each other in a certain way. And it is because of like, he's showing me like the image of a nervous system and how mammals' nervous systems kind of resonate together. It's like saying, well, mammals' nervous systems need each other to regulate each other. And that's not the same as with us insects or quote unquote lower life forms. We don't regulate in that same way. And there's something about that that makes it more difficult for humans to let go of their emotions. I hadn't thought about it like that. Is there anything else, little crab spider friend, that you want to tell us about the reincarnation cycle, or your particular, anything you might remember from your past lives or what you're working on? So what this spider is showing me, like its own kind of trajectory of self-development, if you will, has a lot to do right now with the precision of like geometry and their sacred shapes. And that's why this spider says it has chosen to be this particular kind of spider. There's a lot, you know, it's interesting. It's almost like he's showing himself being in a math class. is how my perception of it. And yeah, there's something really beautiful and kind of precise and um, geometry. Like I've always been a big fan of geometry. The spiders says yes, that's really like maybe it doesn't make sense to the human brain, but this is actually a really fun thing that it's doing right now, learning about geometry. Wow, it's really interesting. Right, taking a moment to check for questions again. All right, so Mr. Spider Friend, I know when we talked to the spider last week that it talked a bit about webs. And that's one of the really outstanding things about spiders is the webs that they build. I wonder if there's anything you want to tell us about your web building or any thoughts about the spider webs and their significance. It's showing something too about, what's deadly to one, like shows like a fly running into the web. Like, wow, that's deadly to the fly, but at the same time, the web itself is so delicate. Like it shows a human or maybe some other animal could come and just run their finger. It would totally destroy the web. And so there's this really delicate and beautiful balance it's showing between life and death, where the web, can cause death, but it can be so beautiful at the same time, but it can be so easily destroyed. I wonder, do you ever feel sad when your web is destroyed, or is that just like you take it as something normal that happens every once in a while? I don't feel attachment to my web in the same way that humans feel attachments to their home. I feel like that's what you were really trying to ask me, is what the spider says. Okay. I really view the web as more of a tool rather than it being my home. Like my home is more about, it's like I don't even necessarily have a home necessarily. Like there's not the same kind of attachment level we spiders have to our webs or where we're at. It's kind of like wherever we are, that's where we are, and we're gonna get our food and sleep and do our thing. Um, it's just really not the same. That's what this little spider is saying. Hmm. All right, little spider friend, I'm kind of watching for any other questions that might come through, but I wonder, is there anything else that you definitely want to tell us today and want to share with our viewers? Anything else you want to be sure to share before we wrap up our time today? It says, as a crab spider, really my messages are about precision. And again, it's acknowledging that this is could be different from other kinds of spiders. And he's saying that humans in general can be really sloppy about certain things. Like we're really showing like skyscrapers, like, wow, we're really good at precision things when it comes to architecture and engineering. Like, well, not all the time. Like, of course, there are mishaps. Like we're really capable of doing these precise things, but sometimes, um, so showing me something about relationships too, like how we can be really messy in our relationships. Like we don't speak clearly and we don't bring precision, or we're just not clear or honest or truthful about what we want or what we want to say or how we treat the people that we're in. And this is more than just like an intimate or romantic relationship, but just friendships and stuff too. And the spider feels like if we would bring more precision and kind of mindfulness to our relationships in general, that as a human population, we would be a lot better off. I can see how that might be true. Well, thank you so much, little spider friend, for sharing your wisdom with us here today. And thanks so much for all of you who joined us live, those of you who are watching later. These videos are really fun for me to do, and I get to interview all kinds of awesome animals. So I'm planning on doing this for at least the next 6 weeks. So I hope you'll join us again live or check out the recordings back on my YouTube channel. And until next time, I hope you'll join us again. But until then, take care and be well.